The Giver, Chapter 9, Summary and Quotes. Jonas has been selected to be the new receiver of memory, a highly honored position in his community. In this lesson, we will cover Chapter 9 of Lois Lowry's The Giver and learn a little bit more about the training Jonas will soon undertake. Feeling alone. Have you ever had to move or switch schools? Have you ever felt you were growing apart from a group of friends with whom you had always been close? These situations can leave someone feeling alone and vulnerable, which is exactly how Jonas feels, as Chapter 9 in Lois Lowry's The Giver opens. In the previous chapter, Jonas did not receive an assignment like his other friends. Instead, Jonas learned he had been selected to be his community's new receiver of memory, a highly honored position in his community. Unfortunately, this means Jonas will have to get used to being alone. The community has only one receiver. After the ceremony, for the first time in his 12 years of life, Jonas felt separate, different. Although his entire life up until now has been spent learning how to behave like everyone else in his group, Jonas now faces a solitary existence. As he leaves the auditorium, people move out of his way, and he thinks he hears people talking about him. Nobody seems to know how to act around him now. Even his best friend Asher seems uncomfortable. Evening meal conversation. During evening meal, Lily shares her plans to begin her mandatory volunteer work at the nurturing center. Lily cannot wait for the next day and the beginning of her new responsibilities as an aide. Lily may be excited about the next day, but Jonas is nervous. Before the ceremony, he had never even heard of the receiver of memory. In the months leading up to the ceremony of 12, Jonas had been anxious about what assignment he might get. Now he knows the name of his job in the community, but still knows nothing about what he will actually be doing. When Jonas says out loud that he is nervous, his parents both insist his selection is a great honor. The receiver is different from other jobs. Because there is only one receiver, it is a very rare selection. The last time someone was selected was 10 years ago, and the selection had been a failure. Naturally, Jonas is curious about who came before him. He asked his parents what the chief elder meant when she said the previous selection was a failure. Just like any parent who does not want to scare their child, Jonas's parents hesitate before his father finally tells him about the former selection. The ceremony was much like Jonas's, where the chief elder skipped one of the 11s and everyone nervously waited to find out why. Jonas interrupts his father's story to ask the name of the boy selected. His mother is the one to explain it had actually been a girl, and they are never to speak the name or to use it again for a new child. Jonas is shocked that the person's name is now labeled not to be spoken, which indicated the highest degree of disgrace. Finding this out only increases Jonas's nervousness, which is then made worse by the fact that his parents do not know what happened to the previously selected receiver. One day she was there, and the next she was gone. Jonas reads his rules for training. Just like a job in our own world, assignments in Jonas's community are accompanied by lots of paperwork. Each child in Jonas's age group received a folder with lists of rules and instructions for their new jobs. Most of these folders contain lots of papers, but Jonas opens his folder to find a single sheet of paper. On that paper, only 8 rules are listed. Jonas's new schedule requires he goes straight to training after school and straight home after training. He is also, for the first time in his life, allowed to ask anyone any questions he wants, though he does not think he will be able to bring himself to do so. He no longer has to share his dreams with his family, but he cannot ask for medicine for anything related to his new job. Jonas is dismissive of the rule telling him he cannot apply for release. He has never dreamed of a situation in which he might want to do so. Of all his new rules, it is the final one that shocks Jonas the most. Rule number 8 states, "You may lie." This rule is shocking since he had been trained since earliest childhood, since his earliest learning of language, never to lie. This strict attitude towards lying even included exaggeration, as Jonas learned when he once claimed to be starving when he was just 4. He had quickly been told that he was not starving, but was only hungry, and so saying he was starving was a lie. Thinking about that lesson, Jonas has an even scarier thought. What if others, adults, had, upon becoming 12s, received in their instructions the same terrifying sentence? Although he now has permission to ask anyone any question he wants, he cannot imagine asking someone whether or not they lie. Besides, even if he felt he could, he would have no way of knowing if the answer he received was true. Lesson summary. Even though Jonas now knows, after months of waiting, what his job will be, he still knows very little about what that job will entail. He knows the receiver of memory is a highly honored position in his community, but he also knows the previous selection failed. Not only did she fail, but her name is now not to be spoken. Jonas is shocked by this knowledge, but is even more shocked by the new rules that go along with his position. Perhaps more shocking in these new rules is the permission to lie, a permission that makes Jonas begin wondering who else in his community might be allowed to lie.